Flight 512 from Phoenix to Boston departed on schedule at 2 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon, carrying 167 passengers through clear southwestern skies toward the East Coast. Aaron settled into his seat in 19C, pulling out his tablet to catch up on reading during the 4.5-hour flight. The cabin was filled with the typical mix of business travelers, families, and individuals traveling alone. Among the passengers was a young boy, perhaps 7 years old, sitting in seat 11F beside a man who appeared to be in his late 30s or early 40s. The man was reading a newspaper and the boy sat quietly looking out the window. To casual observers, they appeared to be just another father and son traveling together. But flight attendant Jennifer Walsh was about to discover that appearances can be devastatingly deceiving. Jennifer had been flying for 8 years and prided herself on reading passengers, on noticing when something seemed off. During boarding, she'd observed the man and boy in row 11. The man had been curt when she'd helped him stow his carry-on, barely acknowledging her assistance. The boy had been silent, withdrawn, making no eye contact. Jennifer had assumed the child was shy or tired. But something nagged at her, some instinct she couldn't quite identify. The boy's clothing looked ill-fitting, as if it didn't belong to him. The man showed no physical affection toward the child, no comforting touch or reassuring words that parents typically offered nervous child flyers. They sat beside each other like strangers forced together, not like family. About 90 minutes into the flight, during beverage service, Jennifer's colleague Marcus brought the cart to row 11. "What can I get for you?" The man ordered coffee without looking up from his newspaper. Marcus turned to the boy. "And for you, young man?" The boy glanced nervously at the man beside him before whispering, "Water, please." Marcus noticed the fear in that glance, the way the boy seemed to be checking for permission. He handed over the drinks and moved on, but the interaction bothered him enough that he mentioned it to Jennifer. The kid in 11F seemed scared of the man with him. Probably nothing, just a strict parent, but it felt weird. Jennifer decided to check on them herself. She walked past row 11 several times over the next 30 minutes, observing. The man and boy never spoke to each other. The boy sat rigid, hands folded in his lap, staring out the window. The man ignored him completely, reading his paper, then working on a laptop, acting as if the child beside him didn't exist. No interaction at all. Jennifer's instincts screamed that something was wrong. She decided to engage directly. Kneeling in the aisle beside the boy's seat, she smiled warmly. "Hi there. Are you flying to Boston for something fun? Visiting family?" The boy looked at her with eyes that held too much sadness for someone so young. "I don't know," he said quietly. "He's taking me there." He nodded toward the man beside him. Jennifer's concern deepened. "Is this your dad?" The boy hesitated, glancing at the man who was now watching their conversation with a hard expression. "He says he's my uncle," the boy finally whispered. Something about the way he said it, the uncertainty, the fear made Jennifer's blood run cold. She smiled at the boy again, patted his hand, and stood up, maintaining a casual demeanor even as alarm bells rang in her head. Jennifer immediately went to the galley and pulled up the passenger manifest on her tablet. Seat 11F. Child listed as Ryan Patterson, age 7, traveling with guardian. Seat 11E, Stephen Patterson, adult. The names matched, suggesting they were related. But something felt profoundly wrong. Jennifer made a decision based purely on instinct and training in recognizing human trafficking. She pressed the call button that connected directly to the cockpit. "Captain, I need to speak with you about a passenger situation. It's urgent." Captain Maria Rodriguez responded immediately. "Come up." Jennifer explained her observations to Maria and her first officer, the boy's fear, the lack of interaction between him and the supposed uncle, the ill-fitting clothes, the child's uncertainty about his relationship to the adult. Maria listened carefully. She'd completed training on recognizing human trafficking indicators, and Jennifer's description hit multiple red flags. "What's your assessment?" Maria asked. Jennifer took a breath. "I think we might have a trafficking situation. I can't prove it, but my gut says that boy is in danger. I think we need to alert authorities and have them meet us on arrival." But here's what made this situation so delicate. If Jennifer and Maria were wrong, if this really was just an uncle traveling with his nephew, and the awkwardness was due to unfamiliarity or the uncle's poor social skills, they'd cause an enormous problem. They'd subject an innocent man to investigation and traumatize a child with a scene at the airport. But if they were right and they did nothing, they'd be delivering a kidnapped or trafficked child to whoever was waiting at the destination. Maria made the command decision. "We report it. Better to be wrong and apologize than right and have done nothing. I'll notify authorities now." Maria radioed ahead using secure communications to notify FBI and Boston police that Flight 512 was arriving with a suspected child trafficking situation. She provided the seat numbers, passenger names, and Jennifer's observations. The FBI response was immediate. Have flight attendant maintain normal interaction with subjects. Do not alert suspect. Law enforcement and child services will meet aircraft. Captain should keep suspects seated after landing until authorities board. Maria relayed this to Jennifer, who returned to the cabin, her heart pounding, trying to maintain a normal demeanor while internally screaming at what she suspected was happening 3 rows away. Aaron, absorbed in his reading, was completely oblivious to the quiet drama unfolding several rows ahead. Other passengers chatted, slept, worked on laptops, all unaware that a flight attendant had potentially identified a kidnapped child and that law enforcement was preparing to board the moment they landed. The flight continued normally for the next 2 hours, the man in 11E working on his laptop, the boy in 11F staring out the window with hollow eyes, Jennifer walking past regularly, each time feeling more certain something terrible was happening. As the plane began its descent into Boston, Jennifer made another attempt to engage the boy. She brought him a snack, cookies and juice, and knelt beside his seat again. "Here you go, sweetie. Are you excited to land?" The boy took the snack with small hands and whispered, "Thank you." Then, so quietly Jennifer almost didn't hear it, the boy added, "Will my mom be there?" Jennifer's heart seized. She glanced at the man who'd heard the question and was glaring at the boy with undisguised anger. "Your uncle is taking care of you," Jennifer said carefully, not wanting to alert the man that she suspected anything. "You'll be fine." But as she stood up, the boy grabbed her hand. "Please," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I want my mom. He says he's my uncle, but I don't know him. I don't know where my mom is." The boy's eyes filled with tears. The man reached over and grabbed the boy's arm roughly. "Ryan, that's enough. Stop bothering the flight attendant." But Jennifer saw the fear in Ryan's eyes, saw him flinch from the man's touch, and knew with absolute certainty that this was not a family relationship. This was something dark and dangerous. Jennifer smiled calmly, not wanting to escalate the situation. "It's no bother at all. Ryan's being very good." She walked away, her legs shaking, and immediately informed Maria over the intercom. "Captain, the child just told me he doesn't know the man, that he wants his mother, and he's clearly terrified. This is definitely not a normal family situation. The man is also getting aggressive." Maria's response was immediate. "Copy. Authorities are standing by at the gate. We're landing in 10 minutes. Just keep them calm until we're on the ground." The landing was smooth, but the tension in Jennifer's body was overwhelming. She watched row 11 constantly, terrified the man would somehow sense they were onto him and do something desperate. But he remained in his seat, looking annoyed at the boy who was now crying quietly, looking increasingly like a kidnapper, realizing his plan was falling apart rather than a guardian managing a difficult child. The plane taxied to the gate, and Maria made an announcement that confused most passengers but was directed at one person. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to a customs issue, we need everyone to remain seated after we arrive at the gate. There will be a brief delay before deplaning. Thank you for your patience." The cabin stirred with annoyance. Customs issues were always frustrating, but the man in 11E immediately tensed. His eyes darted around, and Jennifer saw him calculating, considering. He knew something was wrong. He was trapped. The plane reached the gate and stopped. Within seconds, the door opened and 6 people boarded. 4 in FBI tactical gear, 1 Boston PD detective, and 1 child services worker. They moved directly to row 11. "Stephen Patterson, FBI. Don't move. Keep your hands where we can see them." The man's face went from anger to panic to resignation in seconds. "This is a mistake. He's my nephew. I'm taking him to visit his grandmother." But the boy, seeing the FBI agents, began crying harder and reached toward them. "Please help me. I don't know him. He took me from the park. I want my mom." The FBI agents immediately secured Stephen Patterson, cuffing him and pulling him from his seat while reading him his rights. The child services worker gently took Ryan's hand. "You're safe now, honey. We're going to find your mom. You're safe." Ryan clung to her, sobbing as they escorted him off the plane separately from Patterson. The cabin watched in stunned silence as a man was arrested and a child was rescued right in front of them. Aaron's hands were shaking as he watched the scene unfold. That child had been kidnapped. That man had been caught. And it had happened 3 rows in front of him during a routine flight. Jennifer stood near the cockpit, tears streaming down her face as Ryan was taken to safety. She'd trusted her instincts. She'd reported what she'd seen, and she'd saved a child. Marcus hugged her tightly. "You did it. You saved him." Jennifer could barely speak. "I almost didn't say anything. I almost convinced myself I was overreacting. Thank God I didn't." The FBI investigation revealed the horrifying full story. Stephen Patterson was not Ryan's uncle. He wasn't related to Ryan at all. Ryan's real name was Ryan Foster, and he'd been playing at a park in Phoenix 3 days earlier when Stephen had abducted him. Stephen had been watching the park for weeks, identifying children who played there regularly. Ryan had been momentarily separated from his mother, and Stephen had grabbed him, covered his mouth, and taken him to a car. Stephen had changed Ryan's clothes, told him his mother didn't want him anymore, and kept him locked in a motel room for 2 days while planning to transport him across the country to sell to a trafficking network in Boston. Ryan's mother, Patricia Foster, had been living in hell for 3 days. She'd been at the park with Ryan, had turned away for literally 90 seconds to respond to a text, and when she'd looked back, Ryan was gone. She'd called police immediately. An Amber Alert had been issued. The entire Phoenix area had been searching, but Stephen had kept Ryan hidden in a motel room, and his plan to move Ryan across the country by plane had been sophisticated. He'd created fake documents listing himself as Ryan's guardian, had coached Ryan on what to say if asked questions, had threatened him with harm to his mother if Ryan tried to escape. The plan should have worked, but Stephen hadn't counted on a flight attendant who paid attention. When Patricia was notified that Ryan had been found alive in Boston, that he'd been rescued from a plane before his kidnapper could deliver him to traffickers, she collapsed in relief and gratitude. She flew immediately to Boston, where Ryan was being held by Child Services. The reunion was captured by news cameras, a mother and son torn apart by evil, brought back together by vigilance. Patricia held Ryan and sobbed, and Ryan clung to his mother, repeating, "I knew you'd find me, I knew you'd find me." It was devastating and beautiful, and proof that sometimes the system works, that sometimes good people see evil and stop it. Jennifer Walsh flew to Boston on her day off specifically to meet Patricia and Ryan. Patricia embraced Jennifer like family. "You saved my baby. You saw something was wrong and you didn't ignore it. You trusted your instincts and you saved Ryan's life. I don't know how to thank you. You gave me my son back." Jennifer, crying, knelt to Ryan's level. "Ryan, you were so brave. You told me you wanted your mom. That helped me know something was wrong. You helped save yourself." Ryan hugged Jennifer tightly. "Thank you for helping me. Are you an angel?" Jennifer laughed through tears. "No, honey. Just a flight attendant who was paying attention." But here's what made Jennifer's intervention even more significant. Stephen Patterson wasn't just a lone predator. He was part of a trafficking ring that had been operating for years, stealing children and transporting them across state lines for sale. When FBI agents raided the Boston location where Stephen was supposed to deliver Ryan, they found evidence of 12 other children who'd been trafficked through that network over the past 3 years. Stephen's arrest and cooperation with authorities in exchange for a reduced sentence led to the dismantling of the entire operation. 17 people were arrested. 4 children currently being held were rescued. Jennifer's decision to trust her instincts and report what she'd seen hadn't just saved Ryan, it had broken an entire trafficking network and saved countless future victims. The airline industry took immediate notice. Jennifer's case became a training example for all flight attendants. Trust your instincts, watch for trafficking indicators, report suspicious situations, even if you're not certain. Airlines enhanced their training programs, adding extensive modules on recognizing and responding to child trafficking. Flight attendants are uniquely positioned to spot trafficking. Training materials emphasized. Jennifer Walsh demonstrated the importance of observation and the courage to report. Her actions saved 1 child immediately and many more indirectly. Every flight attendant should aspire to her standard of vigilance. Aaron's article about the incident, titled "The Flight Attendant Who Trusted Her Instincts: How Jennifer Walsh Saved a Kidnapped Child," went viral globally. It detailed Jennifer's observations, her decision to report despite uncertainty, the FBI response, Ryan's rescue, and the larger trafficking ring that was dismantled. Readers were moved to tears by Ryan and Patricia's reunion, inspired by Jennifer's courage, and shocked by how close Ryan had come to disappearing into a trafficking network. Jennifer Walsh wasn't sure, Aaron wrote. She had instincts, observations, concerns, but she couldn't prove anything. She took the risk of being wrong because the alternative, being right and doing nothing, was unacceptable. That's heroism, not certainty, but action despite uncertainty, not fearlessness, but courage despite fear. Jennifer saved Ryan Foster and countless others by trusting herself. That's the lesson for all of us. 6 months after the rescue, Jennifer was honored at the White House alongside other Americans who'd prevented trafficking. The president praised her vigilance and courage. Jennifer Walsh represents the front line in our fight against human trafficking. She saw something that concerned her, and she acted on it, despite uncertainty. Because of her, Ryan Foster is home with his mother. Because of her, a trafficking ring was broken. Because of her, future victims were spared. Jennifer reminds us that ordinary people doing their jobs exceptionally well can save lives and change the world. Thank you, Jennifer, for your service and your courage. Jennifer's speech at the ceremony resonated with everyone present. "I'm not a hero. I'm a flight attendant who paid attention. But I want everyone watching to understand something. Trafficking happens everywhere, including on planes. Traffickers bet on people not noticing, not caring, not wanting to get involved. I noticed because I'd been trained to watch for indicators. I cared because I couldn't ignore a child's fear. I got involved because I couldn't live with myself if I'd been right and done nothing. Please, everyone, pay attention to the world around you. If you see a child who seems frightened of their companion, who doesn't seem to belong with them, who asks for help even quietly, act, call authorities, report it, be wrong and embarrassed rather than right and silent. Ryan Foster is alive because I was willing to be wrong. How many other children would be safe if we all had that willingness?" Patricia and Ryan attended the ceremony, wanting to personally support Jennifer. Ryan, now 8 and recovering well with therapy, stood at the podium and spoke with a maturity beyond his years. Miss Jennifer saved me when I was so scared. The bad man told me nobody would help me, that nobody cared, but Miss Jennifer cared. She saw I was scared, and she helped me. I want to be like Miss Jennifer when I grow up. I want to help people who are scared. Thank you, Miss Jennifer. You're my hero. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Jennifer hugged Ryan tightly. This brave boy whose quiet plea for help had confirmed her suspicions, whose courage in asking for his mother despite his fear had given Jennifer the information she needed. You helped save yourself, Ryan. Never forget that. You were brave enough to tell me you wanted your mom. That bravery matters. Ryan nodded solemnly. I was brave because I knew good people exist. You proved I was right. The Airline Ambassadors International Organization, which trains flight crews to recognize trafficking, featured Jennifer in their training materials and recruited her as a spokesperson. Jennifer traveled to airlines worldwide, teaching crews about indicators of trafficking and emphasizing the importance of trusting instincts. You see hundreds of passengers every flight, she'd tell audiences of flight attendants. Most are normal, harmless, but occasionally you'll see something that doesn't feel right. Don't ignore that feeling. Don't talk yourself out of it. Don't worry about being wrong. Report it. Let professionals investigate. Be the flight attendant who saves a life by caring enough to notice and act. Her training had impact. In the 3 years following Ryan's rescue, there were 17 documented cases of flight attendants identifying and reporting suspected trafficking situations based on indicators they'd learned from Jennifer's case. 9 of those cases resulted in child rescues. 8 led to arrests of traffickers. The ripple effect of Jennifer's actions on Flight 512 spread across the industry, saving multiple lives, breaking trafficking operations, giving stolen children back to their families. Every rescue was a testament to Jennifer's example, to her courage in trusting her instincts despite uncertainty. 5 years after the rescue, Ryan was 12 years old and thriving. He'd processed the trauma with therapy, had returned to a normal childhood, and had remained close to Jennifer, whom he and Patricia considered family. Ryan had become an advocate for missing children, speaking at schools about stranger danger and the importance of seeking help when scared. I was taken from a park because I wasn't paying attention, Ryan would tell students. I wandered away from my mom for just a minute and a bad person took me. But I was saved because a good person paid attention. Miss Jennifer noticed I was scared, and she helped me. You can help too by staying aware, staying close to trusted adults, and telling someone if anything feels wrong. Patricia Foster had turned her trauma into purpose as well. She'd founded a non-profit organization focused on supporting families of abducted children and funding prevention programs. Jennifer served on the board, helping guide the organization's work. Together, they'd created training materials for parents, children, and professionals about recognizing and preventing abduction. We can't prevent every abduction, Patricia would say in presentations, but we can make them harder. We can educate our children. We can watch our surroundings. And we can train professionals like Jennifer to recognize when something's wrong. Every layer of prevention, every watchful adult, every child who knows how to seek help, it all matters. It all saves lives. 10 years after Flight 512, Stephen Patterson remained in federal prison serving a 45-year sentence for kidnapping, child trafficking, and related charges. He'd cooperated with authorities to reduce his sentence from life, providing information that helped prosecute other members of the trafficking ring. But he'd still die in prison. He'd be 94 years old before he'd be eligible for parole. His victims, including Ryan, had all provided impact statements at his sentencing. Ryan's had been particularly powerful. You tried to take my life and childhood. You failed because good people are stronger than bad people. Miss Jennifer was stronger than you. The FBI was stronger than you. My mom's love was stronger than you. You lose, I win. I get to grow up, to have a life, to be happy. You get prison. I hope you think about all the children you hurt and understand that what you did was evil. Jennifer Walsh continued flying until her retirement at age 58. Throughout her final 20 years of service, she remained vigilant, watching passengers, trusting her instincts, reporting concerns. She identified 2 more suspected trafficking situations during her career, both investigated by authorities, one resulting in a rescue, the other determined to be a false alarm. Jennifer never apologized for the false alarm. Better to be wrong once than miss one real case. I'll take embarrassment over a child being trafficked any day. Her philosophy became standard teaching in the industry. At Jennifer's retirement celebration, Ryan, now 17 and preparing for college, attended with his mother. He spoke about Jennifer's impact on his life, on his family, on countless others. Miss Jennifer changed aviation. She changed how flight attendants watch for trafficking. She saved me specifically, but she also created systems that have saved dozens of others. That's legacy, not just one heroic act, but a career of teaching others to do the same. Miss Jennifer, thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. Thank you for hearing my quiet plea for help. Thank you for trusting yourself when it would have been easier to assume everything was fine. You gave me my life back. You gave my mom her son back. And you taught thousands of flight attendants to do the same for others. That's extraordinary. You're extraordinary. Jennifer, crying at Ryan's words, hugged him tightly. This boy she'd last seen as a terrified 7-year-old was now a young man about to start college. A young man who'd been saved because she'd paid attention. Ryan, watching you grow up has been one of the greatest joys of my life. You took something terrible and turned it into purpose. You've educated thousands of kids about safety. You've given hope to other families. You've shown that trauma doesn't have to define you. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for letting me be part of your journey. Patricia added her tribute. Jennifer, you gave me back my reason for living. When Ryan was taken, I wanted to die. The pain was unbearable. But you saw him. You helped him. You brought him home. Everything good in the past 17 years, watching Ryan grow, seeing him thrive, our nonprofit helping other families, speaking publicly about prevention, all of it exists because you trusted your instincts on one flight. You changed our family's trajectory from tragedy to triumph. How do I thank someone for that? How do I express gratitude for my son's life? Words feel inadequate, but thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for seeing my boy and saving him. Aaron, who'd followed the story for 17 years and written multiple updates, published his final article about Jennifer and Ryan on the anniversary of Jennifer's retirement. Flight 512 was supposed to be routine, he wrote. Phoenix to Boston, no different from thousands of other flights that day. But flight attendant Jennifer Walsh noticed a child's fear and trusted herself enough to report it. That decision saved 7-year-old Ryan Foster from trafficking, broke a criminal network, and inspired industry-wide changes that have saved countless other children. 17 years later, Ryan is thriving. Jennifer has retired after a distinguished career, and the systems she helped create continue protecting vulnerable children on flights worldwide. That's not just one story. That's a legacy of vigilance, courage, and compassion that ripples forward through time, saving lives we'll never know about, preventing tragedies we'll never hear of. All because one flight attendant paid attention and trusted herself. All because Jennifer Walsh refused to ignore a child's silent plea for help. The photo that accompanied Aaron's article showed Jennifer and Ryan at her retirement party, arms around each other, both smiling. The caption read, Jennifer Walsh and Ryan Foster, 17 years after she saved his life. He calls her his guardian angel. She calls him her inspiration for staying vigilant. Together, they've changed how aviation fights human trafficking. It was the perfect image to capture their relationship, not savior and victim, but two people bound by crisis who'd transformed that trauma into purpose and protection for others. Flight 512 continued operating for years, though the specific aircraft that had carried Ryan to safety was eventually retired. But in training facilities worldwide, in programs teaching trafficking recognition, in materials educating flight crews about vigilance, Flight 512 lived on. The flight where a child asked for his mother, where a flight attendant listened, where instinct met courage and saved a life. The flight that proved ordinary people doing extraordinary things by simply paying attention and trusting themselves could change the world. Ryan Foster went to college majoring in criminal justice, planning to join the FBI and fight human trafficking professionally. Miss Jennifer saved me, he'd explain to anyone who asked about his career choice. Now I want to save others. I want to be the person who stops traffickers before they can steal children. I want to be the investigator who brings kids home to their families. Miss Jennifer showed me that one person paying attention can change everything. I'm going to spend my life being that person for other kids who need help. That's how I honor what she did for me, by doing it for others. Jennifer's legacy wasn't measured in years of service or flights completed. It was measured in lives saved, in traffickers caught, in children returned home, in systems improved, in awareness raised, in flight attendants trained. It was measured in Ryan Foster, thriving and dedicating his life to helping others. It was measured in the 17 children rescued by flight attendants who'd learned from her example. It was measured in prevention, in the trafficking attempts that never succeeded, because crews were watching, because systems had improved, because Jennifer Walsh had shown the industry what vigilance looked like. That's the story of Flight 512, and the child who asked an odd question that revealed a dark truth. A story of a 7-year-old's courage to whisper, "I want my mom." A story of a flight attendant's instinct to recognize fear and report it despite uncertainty. A story of a system that worked when activated, when law enforcement and child services came together to rescue a child and break a trafficking ring. A story that reminds us all that we're surrounded by hidden suffering, by people in danger who need someone to notice, to care, to act. Jennifer Walsh was that someone for Ryan Foster. Who will we be that someone for? That's the question her story asks. That's the challenge her legacy issues. Pay attention. Trust your instincts. Act despite uncertainty. Save the life that's depending on someone noticing. Be like Jennifer Walsh. The world needs more people who care enough to see what others miss and brave enough to act on what they see.